Hi, thanks for using my court coach. I'm Sarah and I'll be your instructor today as we talk about the income and expense declaration. This is also known as Form FL-150. The court will request this form be provided to them whenever there are financial issues before them. So as with every court form, you want to fill in your identifying case caption information at the top. Below that, if you are employed, you want to list the name of your employer's address, their phone number, your occupation, and the approximate date your job started. You will also attach 2 months worth of pay stubs to this form. Make sure to redact the social security numbers for your own privacy. If you are unemployed, in 1F, you will list the date your last job ended. 1G, you want to list, if you are employed, how many hours per week you're working on average. And then 1H, you're going to list your income in a gross figure before taxes, and then list whether that amount that you've listed here is per month, per week, or per hour. If you are self-employed, we're going to get to that on page 2, but still list your employment contact information at the top. Field 2, you're going to write in your age. Mark whether you have completed high school or the equivalent. If you have not completed high school, mark the highest grade that you've completed. If you have completed college, list how many years of college you've completed, what degrees you've earned, specify those here. Same with graduate school. If you've completed any graduate school, list the number of years and what degree you've obtained, if any. If you have any professional or occupational licenses or vocational training, mark the appropriate box and specify what those licenses or training are. Below that is tax information. You want to mark box 3A and list the last year you filed taxes for. Below that, you're going to mark the box that identifies what your tax filing status is: single, head of household, married filing separately, or married filing jointly. If married filing jointly, please write the name of the person that you are filing jointly with. 3C, you are going to mark if you file tax returns in California. If there's some other state you file tax returns in, then you would mark the box that says other and specify what state that is. 3D, you're going to list the number of exemptions you claim. You're always going to claim at least yourself, so this number should not be less than 1. But if there are other exemptions, then you add that to the 1. Line 4, you're going to list your estimate of the other party's income, their gross income again, and it should be a monthly amount that you're listing, not an annual amount. And then below that, you're going to explain what your estimate is based on. As I stated previously, there are going to be some attachments to this. We've already discussed pay stubs, so however many pages you're attaching to this form, make sure to identify that here. And then you want to print your name here and sign and date the form on page 1. This is actually a 4-page form, but the signature goes on page 1. Page 2 is where you specifically identify your income. And so there's a space to list what your last month's income is and your average monthly. Average monthly, it states you can add up your income for the last 12 months and divide the total by 12. Oftentimes, if this form is completed towards the end of the year, you can also pull average monthly from your year to date on your pay stubs. If there's any amounts that you're receiving as overtime, again, you would list that here, specifically identify it here. Commissions, bonuses go below that. If you're receiving any sort of public assistance, you would identify that on line 5D. If you're receiving spousal support from this marriage or any marriage, you would list that in line 5E and then specify whether it's from this marriage, a different marriage, and if it's taxable or not. If you're receiving spousal support from an order that was prior to 2019, it likely is taxable. And same goes for partner support. If you're receiving any sort of partner support, that gets listed on line 5F. If you're receiving income from pension or retirement fund payments, that gets listed on line 5G. If you're receiving any sort of Social Security retirement pay, that is listed on 5H. If you are receiving any sort of disability pay, and then there's different types that are listed: Social Security, state disability, or private insurance, that is listed on line 5I. If you are receiving unemployment benefits, that is listed on 5J. Workers' compensation goes on 5K. And if there's any other income that you're receiving, and it says military allowances, for instance, that would be your BAH, BAS, that will be listed on 5L. If you have investment income, then you need to list that in field 6. And there's different types of investment income: dividends, interest, rental property income, trust income, other. Some of these, for instance, rental property income, you need to attach a schedule showing the gross receipts minus the expenses, kind of like a profit and loss statement for the rental property income. And then income from self-employment, and I did touch base on that on page 1. If you have income from self-employment, do your best to list your last month. Obviously, self-employment income often varies. We're more focused on the average monthly. You do need to attach a profit and loss statement for the last 2 years or a Schedule C from your last federal tax return. This serves the place of pay stubs, since you probably do not have pay stubs. You need to list your role in the business, if you're an owner or sole proprietor, a business partner, or other, the number of years this business has been in effect, the name of the business, and the type of the business. Line 8, if you receive some sort of one-time money and it gives lottery winnings or inheritance as an example, you would put it there. I often put, if you get an annual bonus, I would probably list that there as well. If there's been a change in your income, line 9 gives you a space to explain that. Maybe you lost your job or something like that, that would go here. Deductions go in field 10. And there's some specific ones that you can list. Required union dues, for instance, if you're a teacher, you would list that here. Mandatory retirement payments, that's not volunteer like 401k payments, but again, to use the teacher's example, teachers have to pay into a mandatory retirement fund that would be listed in 10B. Your monthly medical insurance premiums get listed in 10C, and that includes hospital, medical, dental, vision. If you have children from another relationship that you are currently paying child support for, you would list that in 10D. If you are paying spousal support for a different relationship, you would list that in 10E. And again, if this is stemming from an order prior to 2019, it probably is deductible, so you would mark that box. Partner support, if you are paying partner support, you would list that in 10F. And job-related expenses not reimbursed by your employer, you would list that in 10G, and you would also need to attach a separate sheet of paper to this explaining what those job expenses are. 11, you want to list the total balance in all of your bank accounts that are easily accessible to you. 11B, you want to list the value of your stocks, bonds, and other assets you can easily sell. And 11C, you're going to list the total value of all your property, real and personal. If real, mark the box that says real. If it's just personal, mark the box that says personal. This is going to be the net value. So if you have a mortgage on your house, you want to deduct that from the fair market value. Page 3. This is where we list your expenses. And I just want you to understand that this is a one-size-fits-all form. This is used for many different purposes. So some of this information, for instance, your expenses are probably not super relevant to the issue of child support, but it may be relevant to the issue of spousal support. Unfortunately, the way this form is set up, you do have to fill in every single line. So starting at the top, you want to list the number of people that are living with you, their names, ages, their relationship to you, their gross monthly income. If you know that, if it's a roommate, you probably don't, but if it's, your spouse, then you likely do. And whether or not they are paying some of the household expenses. Again, this probably isn't super relevant to the issue of child support, but it would be relevant to the issue of spousal support. Expenses. Let's look at the purpose of why you're filling out this form. If this is just for child support, go ahead and just list your estimated and actual expenses, meaning that your mortgage probably does not change month to month. Your grocery bill probably does. So with the groceries, you'd want to give your best estimate. With the mortgage, you'd want to list the actual. I always just mark both boxes to indicate that I'm providing both numbers. If this request is for spousal support, if you are requesting spousal support for yourself, you would want to list your proposed needs instead, because you might be currently living with your spouse, and he or she is contributing to your expenses, but you at some point would like spousal support to be able to move out onto your own. So that's where the proposed needs comes in handy. So let's go through the expenses. 13A, you list what your housing expenses are. If you're renting, mark the box that says rent. If you're paying a mortgage, mark the box that says mortgage. If it is a mortgage, one of the things we do look at in a support calculation is how much you are paying towards your principal and also property taxes. So make sure to list what your average principal monthly payment is and your average interest monthly payment is. A lot of times people will put the percentage. That's not very helpful. We need an actual dollar amount here. Real property taxes, same thing. It needs to be a monthly amount. I know a lot of people pay twice a year on their taxes, but you need to multiply that twice a year amount by 6, so you get an annual amount and divide by 12. Homeowners or renters insurance goes into 13.3, and you want to estimate the amount you pay on average for maintenance and repair. That goes into 13.4. Healthcare costs not paid by insurance. So this is not where you list your insurance premiums. This is where you would list your uncovered medical expenses. That's typically going to be your copays, your prescription costs. On average, the monthly amount goes in here. Childcare, what do you spend per month on childcare? That goes into 13C. 13D, groceries and household supplies. Again, you're going to have to give your best estimate here as to what that amount is. And it's not just groceries, it's not just food, household supplies, that's also going to be your Target runs. Add what that total up is in your head and put that here. Eating out, how much do you spend eating out on average, goes into 13E. 13F, utilities, that's gas, electric, water, trash, list in 13F. 13G, telephone, cell phone, and email goes in there. Laundry and cleaning, 13H, clothes, 13I, education, 13J. I include children's educational costs in this too. There's field trips to pay for, yearbooks, that kind of thing. So on average, what are you spending on education? You can put in 13J. 13K, entertainment, gifts, and vacation. That also includes birthday gifts, going to movies, that kind of thing. Add up those costs, and on average, whatever you spend, list in 13K. Auto expenses and transportation. This is limited to insurance, gas, repairs, bus. This is not where you list what you pay for your auto loan every month. So make sure that the amount you're listing here is limited to insurance, gas, repairs, and if there's a bus pass or a subway pass, etc., that goes into 13L. 13M. This also has a limitation on it. It's life or accident insurance. Do not include your auto insurance, your home insurance, health insurance. Auto insurance would go in 13L, and health insurance we've already listed on the previous page, and homeowners insurance goes right here. So again, just limited to life, accident. You could include disability. I think that would be fine as well. And I think that's what they mean by accident. So that goes into 13M. If you put aside any money for savings and investments, you want to list that in 13N. A lot of times people neglect to include what their 401k contributions are, but I always make sure to include that in 13N, and you can pull that from your pay stub if your employer is helping with that. Any charitable contributions, you would list in 13.0. We're going to leave 13P blank for now. And then any other expenses, maybe your homeowners association fees, cable, you can list in Q. If this is not enough space for you, you can always add an attachment to this form and just put 13Q continued at the top of it. You're going to total up your expenses, and that goes into 13R, and amount of expenses paid by others. If someone is helping you with your monthly expenses, then you would write here how much that contribution is per month. So I had said we're going to hold off on 13P, and that's because we actually would identify those monthly payments in box 14. This is installment payments. That's going to be your auto loans, your credit cards, revolving debts, etc. So for those kind of payments, you want to list who is being paid, what company, what is it for. So if you have an auto loan, for instance, you'd say maybe Chevrolet for auto loan, list the monthly amount that you're paying, or I usually just go by the last month's payment, the balance, and then the date of the last payment. You want to total all these up. That total number goes into line 13P. Attorney fees, this part only needs to be filled out if either party is requesting attorney fees. It's usually filled out by the attorney, and this page 3 would be signed by the attorney as well. Finally, page 4. If this case involves child support, you need to fill out page 4. You want to identify how many children you share with the other parent in this case, and what percentage of time they spend with you versus the other parent. If you're unsure about the percentage of time, describe how you are sharing the kids, and then the court can determine what the timeshare is. You want to identify in line 17 if you have health insurance for the children, so you either do or do not through your job. You want to list the name of the insurance company, the address of the insurance company, and if you know how to separate out the amount paid for the children's insurance specifically, you would list that in 17D. 18 is additional expenses for the children in the case. If you require childcare so you can be employed, then you would list that in 18A. Any health care not covered by insurance, again, that's prescriptions, copays, goes into 18B. If there's extraordinary travel expenses for visitation, 18C. And if the children have any educational or special needs, you would list what amount that is, and under 18D, list what that's for. We have covered in other videos what hardships are that the court can consider. There's really only 3 types of hardships the court can consider: either extraordinary health expenses, major losses not covered by insurance, some sort of catastrophic loss, or expenses for minor children that live with you from other relationships, if you believe that exceeds your ability to provide for them. So for any of these hardships, if you're requesting that, you would want to list the amount of the hardship per month, and if there's a duration on that, if it's some sort of limited time period, then you would want to list how many months that hardship is in effect for, and the court can consider that as part of a child support calculation. And of course, you'd want to specify why it's a financial hardship for you right here. If there's any other information you want the court to know about support in your case, you can put it down in line 20. Sometimes I will put there the start date of a pay year if it didn't start on January 1st, because I know that the court is often going to do a year-to-date calculation from the pay stubs, and they need to know what the start date is to enter as the beginning of the pay year. So I hope that you found this helpful. Good luck.